Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Very eventful times, as we are going to be alluding to gratis one of the questioners. So without further ado, I am going to plunge right in with what AR says. Lady C, the King's been all over the news following his confession at that cancer reception at Buckingham Palace that his cancer diagnosis has been a daunting and frightening experience. I know what you said previously about not violating his privacy, and from someone who knows you well, that you have your finger firmly on that pulse, the way you did with our beloved late Queen's health issues. And I'm sure I'm not alone in wanting an update from you on anything you feel able to share. I respect your need for discretion, but anything you could say would be welcome. You're not the only person who has approached me with that theme, shall we say. And so, yes, I will briefly say, yes, he had a reception at Buckingham Palace. I noticed that one or two of the old faithfuls, such as Richard E. Grant, were there. And he was surrounded by some familiar faces and others who deservedly should have been there to receive the recognition that really their efforts deserve. My brother-in-law is a top doctor in the United States of America, and he keeps me knowledgeable about what the situation is in terms of when I get information, I always run it by him. And he has made the point, which I think I've made before, but I think it needs to be made again, that there are tremendous advances being made in the treatment of cancer. And it's not the sentence it used to be many years ago. And you can be kept functional for a considerable length of time while still having cancer. And I'm not going to say what I know and from whom I know it, or where he gets what treatment, but I will say he does get treatment, and it's not necessarily, one thing is not necessarily from the same place as another thing, but it is all treatable, if not curable. And he is basically somebody who's always been fit, who's always taken good care of himself, who's always eaten very sensibly. And he is there, and also with his attitude, he is a pretty good specimen to have as a patient. Of course it's frightening, of course it's daunting, but as with so many other people with character and courage, he's dusted himself off and gone about the business of living and thrown himself into the business of living and loves his job. And it's more than a job, really. It's a calling. And he loves it, and he has been he was keen to get back to it, and he's got back to it, and believe me, they're going to have to pry his fingers away. He loves being king, and he loves doing good, and I don't agree with everything he's about. I certainly don't agree with some of his religiosity on matters such as climate change. I think he takes a very limited view of things, and he has turned hypothesis into science just because the hypotheses are furthered by people who claim to be scientists. And I think it is a latter-day version of 1,000 years ago. You sinned, and therefore you are responsible for the floods and the hurricanes and the volcanoes erupting, all of which, of course, is absolute rubbish. But I hope this answers your question. He's evidently a very good patient, and he's evidently a very engaged patient, as well as a very engaging person. He also has very definite ideas of his own. I make that point for what it's worth. Whether, of course, that is universally appreciated, even by his doctors, would be something else, and I certainly wouldn't be going there. Kathy M. says, "Hi all." Hello, Kathy M. Did everyone see the short video that Meghan released, taken near her garden? She was dressed almost like Catherine was dressed while on tour. Skinny jeans, jacket and boots, all in similar colours to Catherine's in warm California. What point is she trying to make? I wonder. This is such strange behaviour, in my opinion. It's bizarre behaviour. The woman doesn't have an original thought or an original idea or an original bone in her body. And she is obsessed with her sister-in-law, Catherine. She is obsessed with beating her, notwithstanding the fact that she doesn't have the natural equipment. She'd like to beat her in the clothing stakes. Catherine has the perfect figure for clothes. Meghan doesn't. Catherine wears clothes that are properly fitted. Meghan doesn't. Catherine is naturally good looking. Meghan isn't. If Meghan hadn't had her teeth fixed and her nose done and all of the other beauty aids that she's had, she would really be very unattractive. Very. But to give her due, she has brushed up well, and she has made the most of her limitations. And Meghan is not a beauty, never was, never can be. Catherine is a natural beauty. Catherine also has gloriously beautiful hair, which, if you notice, is now, it's not blonde. They're saying it's blonde. It's not blonde. It's been slightly auburnised, which I think is very attractive. What's Meghan on about? She's competing, and she's competing against a competitor with whom she cannot possibly prevail. Catherine is more intelligent. Catherine is a nicer person. Catherine is a stronger person. Catherine is an authentic person. Catherine is a grounded person. Do lally Megsy babies. Well, I'm up there in the clouds. I mean, If I claim it so, it's got to be so. Well, ridiculous. The point she's trying to make is that she is not only as good as Catherine, but she is better than Catherine. She is compulsively competitive. It does not behoove you to compete against that which you cannot win against. I just make that point for what it's worth. But she's showing everybody, anything you can do, I can do better. And is it working? I don't think so. I don't think so. Also, she looked ridiculous, and the contrivances of everything, the heaping baskets, all of which she was slugging around together, with the flowers in one, beautifully curated, I'm really in a beauty, and I just love curating things. In other words, she's an unnatural so-and-so who loves artifice. And I love beauty, but would I be doing something like that? No. I know the difference between beauty and artificiality. Then she had the basket full of oranges and one full of strawberries and one full of flowers, all at the same time, and with Megsie baby, hoping that everybody would think she was the Princess of Wales. Well, she may be the Duchess of Wales, and she's certainly the Duchess of Whales, of discomfort, but she's certainly not the Princess of Wales. So I make that point for what it's worth. AMPT says, Lady C, I have a generalized question for you. Can you make sense of the array of stories that Meghan and her people have been bombarding us with? In the last few weeks, I've begun to feel... Sorry. I've begun to feel like an accidental bystander caught up unintentionally in a protest who's being hosed down by water cannon. Oh, dear. I know exactly what you mean. I have to say, I feel the same way. We are being bombarded, aren't we? How do I make sense of it? She's desperate. She doesn't understand that overexposure is fatal. She thinks publicity is always going to shift produce and products. It doesn't. I used to say that to Gary Pulsifer, who was my publisher many years ago. He also believed that the more you bombarded everybody with publicity about a book, the quicker it would fly off the shelves. Not if it's weighted down with lead, it doesn't. So it's a marketing tool, and some of it is conventional, and some of it is to be expected, but too much, it's a bombardment. You're absolutely right. It's a bombardment, and it's an array of subjects, all of which are coinciding for the bombardment. So, and the water cannon is a really good analogy. She's done certain things that actually give her game away, and she always does this. She can't resist showing everybody how clever she is, or doing things that are, in her view, so clever that everybody's going to be duped into falling for the manipulated narrative when in fact everybody can see through it, because she is, as well, everybody being everybody except the Sussex squad, because she is so completely transparent. And I'm going to use a little example. It has now emerged that Megsy baby, clever Megsy baby, and I'm just so bright and I'm so clever, and you're never going to be able to see through me because you're so stupid. Except, of course, we're all cleverer than she is and we see through her. What does she do? She sends some of her products to Alex Beresford, the weatherman who helped to cause Piers Morgan to lose his job, who betrayed his boss Piers Morgan's interests and rights to have his own opinion, playing the colour card, because that's what Alex Beresford did. And Alex Beresford did the I'm a man of colour and Meghan's a woman of colour and we've got to stick together no matter how big a liar she is. And I should be as disloyal as I want to be to my boss, even though he's been really good to me, because he's not a man of colour and therefore I can plunge the knife into him. So having done that, what does Megsy baby do? She sends him, and doubtless this is supposed to show how loyal she is and how thoughtful she is and how she rewards loyalty to her. So what does she do? She gets this stuff delivered, her as ever jams, to friends in the UK who include Alex Beresford. And who does the delivering? His wife, Imogen Beresford's company does it. Now, that tells me that either Alex Beresford and his wife, Imogen, were already in touch with Meghan, and therefore he helped to ambush Piers Morgan, or that after he ambushed Piers Morgan on Meghan's behalf, Meghan got in touch with him, and this is a signal that she's giving to the world that, look, you do the dirty on me, I'm gonna screw you. You do the dirty on my behalf, I'm gonna reward you. And I'm gonna do it in such a way that everybody knows it. Because not only am I gonna be proving to everybody how powerful and potent I am, and how far-thinking and how strategic I am, but also how intimidating I am, and that when you cross me, I will go to great lengths to work you over. So clever. So clever. Ein Land says, Markle will do anything to destroy what she cannot have. That is the oversight error. What are your thoughts? Meghan will do anything to achieve what she wants, and who she destroys in the process or what she destroys is of absolutely no concern to her. It is a concern of hers, and it certainly should remain a concern of ours as well, but it's no concern to her. She is capable of anything, as Harry said, and she shows it on a daily basis. In the last few weeks, she has not only shown us what a saccharine, sweet phony she is, and she hasn't only shown us how the fruit of her endeavors are something that she enjoys munching on and showing off to us. She is doing a Michel Duvalier. I don't know how many of you will remember who Michel Duvalier was. She was baby Doc Duvalier's wife. Beautiful girl. And when they were President and First Lady of Haiti, she conceived the bizarre Meganian idea that the rabble would be absolutely thrilled and so enchanted to live vicariously through her that she put televisions in every village dotted throughout Haiti, so that when there were these grand receptions and parties and balls at the presidential palace, the poverty-stricken people would be enchanted and see, oh, Michel Duvalier, oh, aren't we lucky? We're living vicariously through Michel Duvalier. Gosh, we are so lucky. Ah, we should be undyingly grateful. Meghan's doing a version of the same thing. She is bombarding people on a daily basis with the carefully curated Instagram posts of her wonderfully beautiful life and her beautiful surroundings, and all of which she's created because that man loves me so much and I've created all of this. He's really lucky, isn't he? And so are you, to get a glimpse of what I'm about. I'm just so wonderful, and you need to remember it. But if you do something that she doesn't like, or if you stand in her way, shades of the royal family, her father, her own father, the father whom she praised to the skies until it suited her to dump him. Some people believe because he wasn't sufficiently presentable to accompany her down the aisle. Interesting, no? Well, anything that she can't have, I don't think she destroys anything that she can't have. I think she destroys anything that stands in her way or that she envies. She envies Catherine. She's competing with Catherine on a perpetual basis. She would like to be Catherine. So since she can't be, she tries to top her, and she would love to eradicate her. And she set about doing it very effectively because let me phrase this very carefully. It was when she was with Harry knocking back the wine at the opening of Soho House in Amsterdam when she was supposed to be pregnant. She seems to think we're pigs in lipstick just because she is one. She was making sure that she showed the world that she and Harry are so in love and that they are so much more suited because they're so in love. They're Romeo and Juliet. They're Abelard and Eloise. They're Mutt and Jeff. They're Batty and Bench. They're Armpit and Deodorant. and we'll stop there because I don't want to get on to anything about the 16 bathrooms and the fact that lavatory paper is very appropriately used when Harry and Meghan reveal all and expel all the way they regularly do through each and every orifice. But she is a nasty piece of work, and she is ruthless, and she has gone to great lengths to destroy or try to destroy Catherine's reputation, and also William's, not only casting aspersions upon the state of their marriage, and then of course there have been stories that spread beyond that about not only the state of their marriage, but the state of their being generally. Then of course she's the one who told amid scabies that Catherine was a racist because he didn't learn it from anybody else but her. And she's never withdrawn that. And when Catherine was diagnosed with her illness, what did Meghan do? She didn't discourage her Sussex squad from spreading the filthiest lies about Catherine. And let's remember, one of the many people who spread filthy lies about Catherine was a certain actress called Blake Lively, another piece of work. So I hope that answers the question. Greg Dakill says, or Dakill, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Beautiful, Lady C. Thank you very much. It's very gratifying to hear that at 47, 75. My mouth slipped. I said what I would have liked as opposed to what was. Naughty me. Just an observation. I think sometimes the joke is on us, at least in Meghan's mind. Meghan has become a professional failure, and she is getting tons of recognition for it. People talk about her constantly, and they tune in to her shows and podcasts to ridicule her, but also to witness her latest failure. I think this has a point. That's why I'm reading it out. She is making a living out of being a professional failure instead of a founder. Well, she's founded the archetypes of failure, hasn't she? Negative comment and attention are fine with her as long as she is in the news cycle and the topic of morbid fascination. At some point, people will want to interview her and celebrate her like they did the famous Florence Foster Jenkins. I'm going to stop right there and say, before continuing the question, to those of you who don't know, Florence Foster Jenkins was a very rich woman who had the most dreadful voice. She screeched. She didn't sing, but she was rich, and she had a husband who used to put on concerts for her where people would go to laugh at her, not with her. And she thought that they were with her when they were actually mocking her. And the whole apple cart collapsed when he took over Carnegie Hall, and the reaction was so shocking to her, because up to then the concert venues had been very intimate, and so she was rarely able to be spared the reality of people's opinions of her. Well, I remember when I was young, there were tapes of Florence Foster Jenkins that we used to laugh at. My brother was extremely musical, and we mixed in a very musical world. For instance, Shura Chikaski was a great friend of ours. The list of, and also our cousin was Sir Peter Jonas, the the head of the English National Opera, then Bavarian State Opera, because we come from a very musical family. And we used to kill ourselves laughing. I mean, Florence Foster Jenkins was one of the biggest jokes of all time. And she didn't realize it until she fell to bits as a result of realizing it after the Carnegie Hall recital. But anyway, let me continue the question. Florence Foster Jenkins could sell out Carnegie Hall just so people could watch her incredulous that she could be so terrible. It's true. But yet she sold the tickets for people to hear her sing, and even had a movie made about her life starring Meryl Streep. Also, Hugh Grant was in it. Hugh Grant played the husband. It was a very good movie, really well worth seeing, and rather sad. Meghan is the modern day Florence Foster Jenkins. Very good analogy, and will have the public's fascination for much, if not the remainder of her life on this earth. In her narcissistic mind, she wins. Sick, but fascinating to watch. You may not agree with me, but had to share. I love you, Lady C. Greg Daykill. Greg Daykill, thank you so much. I loved absolutely everything you said. I couldn't agree more, except that Megsy Baby is more delusional than Florence Foster Jenkins, because when Florence Foster Jenkins got the slap across her face by the overt reaction to her awful singing at Carnegie Hall, she collapsed. And that was effectively the end of Florence Foster Jenkins. Meghan, on a daily basis, gets the slap of a commensurate reaction from the public. And she thinks, oh, these people are just so delusional. I mean, can you believe it? They actually hate me because I'm so beautiful and I'm so a race, and because they're racist because I'm a proud, confident woman of color, and I was a star of Suits. I was the star of Suits. And anything that they come up with is just crazy. I mean, these people are really nuts, along the lines of the psychiatrist goes into the lunatic asylum and says, and he is accompanied by, for instance, Princess Grace of Monaco. And he says to this bedraggled woman, oh, hello, may I introduce you to, may I present you to Princess Grace of Monaco? And the bedraggled woman says, no, you may not. I'm Princess Grace of Monaco. That's the level of crazy that Meghan is treating us to. But so I love the comment, and she is the new Florence Foster Jenkins. She thinks she's a wonderful singer, and she croaks like a croaking lizard. And if you were Jamaican, you'd know exactly what I mean and how completely appropriate that analogy is. J.O.B. says, Lady C, what are your views on the fact that Virginia Giuffre's lawyers were going to call Meghan Markle as a witness in a forthcoming trial? This fact seems to have been glossed over. Please spill the tea before Virginia's life fades into the distance. Thank you. David Boyce is a crass and vulgar opportunist who will do, and he's also a brilliant lawyer, by the way, and he will do and does anything to sully the other side and further his client's interests. He threatened to call Meghan as a witness, and the ostensible reason for doing it was that Meghan, being honourable, remember, Meghan's a Democrat. David Boys was Clinton's lawyer, still is Clinton's lawyer, although he ceased being for a period when it was convenient for all of them that he ceased being. Judge Kaplan was a Democrat. Cyrus Vance Jr. was a Democrat. The whole thing was a Democratic stitch-up to preserve Bill Clinton's name and Hillary Clinton's interests while she was hoping to run for president. And thereafter, just to preserve Bill Clinton's name and interests. The flip side of that, which I'm sure David Boys was not blind to, was that while on the face of it, Meghan could be presented as being the one member of the royal family who would speak the truth about the way that poor Virginia had been treated, the flip side of that was going to be, how could Meghan do that? Was Meghan involved? Was Meghan there at the time? What does Meghan know? How does Meghan know it? Why does Meghan know it? Very clever move. Of course, he was never going to call her, but he was simply going to announce that he was going to call her. It's called trial by publicity. Look at where it's got Virginia Giuffre. And incidentally, I know that an awful lot of people are trying to traduce her husband unfairly. I am assured that any accusations against her husband and children are totally unfounded. And if they came from her, that makes them not only unfounded, but despicable and indefensible. So I make that point for what it's worth. And we're going to end with what Josh H. says. You have spoken previously of the late George Carman, QC, on your programme. He famously defended the disgraced British Liberal Party leader Jeremy Thorpe at his trial for incitement and conspiracy to commit murder against his former lover, Norman Scott. This was the subject of the series A Very English Scandal, which starred one of your favourites, Hugh Grant, as Jeremy Thorpe. He was actually very good in it. My question is, did you know Jeremy Thorpe and his devoted wife, Marion Stein Lascelles, who stood by him during and after the scandal? What did you think of them? I knew them slightly. I wouldn't say I knew them well, but I certainly knew them slightly. The last time I saw Jeremy Thorpe was at a party that Lady Edith Foxwell had. She was the ex-wife of Ivan Foxwell, who was a film producer. And she was a great social figure and actually somebody I knew very well for many years. And they had this party and he was there. And I can still see him actually as if it were yesterday, because by then he had Parkinson's pretty badly. And it was painful to see his deterioration. And now my father had and died of Parkinson's, as did various members of my father's family. So I have a great deal of compassion for people who suffer from Parkinson's. And he managed to get himself all togged up in his three-piece suit as if he were still going to Parliament, or as if he were going to be giving a speech in the House of Commons, or indeed he were going to be a witness at some court. But he was slightly seedy around the edges, which basically you pretty much have to be when you have Parkinson's. And so you had to understand. He was perfectly pleasant. He was perfectly nice. He was trying to do his best, which I thought was very courageous, because my father, for instance, for the last several years of his life, never went out in public because it was so ungainly. Parkinson's can be so ungainly. And credit to Jeremy Thorpe, he went out. Marion Thorpe, she was a very nice woman. She was actually, may I make the point, she was never Marion Lascelles. She was Marion Stein, Countess of Harewood, unless she was Viscountess Lascelles before she became Lady Harewood. I don't remember, but if George Harewood's surname was Lascelles. The secondary title is Viscount Lascelles. So I don't remember now whether George was the Earl at the time of the marriage or not, in which case she would have been Marion Stein Lascelles. But by the time they were divorced, she was very definitely Marion, Countess of Harewood. And she was a great music lover. She and Fanny Waterman founded the Leeds Piano Competition, which is one of the top 5 piano competitions in the world, right up there with the Tchaikovsky and the Queen Elizabeth of the Belgians, etc., the Chopin. So she was a very nice woman and very open, especially where music was concerned. There was a Jamaican pianist called Eleanor Alberga, wonderfully gifted pianist. She actually ended up being attached to the Rambert School, ballet school, and she's done wonderful stuff with them. But in those days, she was starting out. And I went to a concert that Eleanor, who's originally Jamaican, gave. And I was with my brother. And I said to Mickey, she has the most wonderful tone. It's just like Horowitz's, very bell-like. And that's a compliment, by the way, not an insult. So I spoke to Eleanor, and I realized her career, as all musicians starting out could do, with a little push in the right direction. And I phoned up Marion Thorpe, and I asked her if she would receive and check out Eleanor, which she did. I don't remember the outcome now. This is decades ago. This must be the late 70s, early 80s. I don't really remember the outcome. But whatever whatever Marion Thorpe did or didn't do with Eleanor, I know she received her at her house, which, if I remember correctly, was Orme Square off Bayswater Road. And she was a lovely woman. She certainly stood by Jeremy throughout the trial and after the trial. They had a very good marriage. And he was, my understanding is that he was a man of great physicality. And if at one stage of the game he played both sides off against the centre, he, after the whole business of the trial, he actually was thereafter rather chastened, and they continued to have a good and happy marriage. And she had 2 sons, one of whom I knew slightly. He's now the present Earl, and lovely, lovely woman. And he, very sad what happened, but I think Jeremy Thorpe was a naughty boy, and I think he liked, rather like Icarus, sailing close to the wind, to the sun, and he got his wings singed. So on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Okay, thank you so much. Take good care and Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, and press the notification bell? Thank you. Bye-bye.